Eyebrow
of concern.
down?
Yes, voice of concern.
Did a Danette miss the end of the biggest game of the year?
Yes.
Was that enough? I didn't have to put enough on
A
it.
little bit more. Got to give me a little more.
Did a Danette miss the biggest game of the year? That's next.
Yeah.
Better?
Better. We'll work on it.
All right.
We'll work on it. We have another day together. We have all day today. We're going to work on that.
Well, I do have the story. The newsroom's been all over this one. We got a report in late last night. Seton O'Connor and I were in the newsroom late, and a story came in on the hotline, and one of the Danettes, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't Seton, slept through at least the fourth quarter of the football game last night. Kevin, how do you take it from there?
How do you sleep through the national championship game, the college football game of the season? Do we know? Do you have an idea? Fritzy, McLovin? How was that final drive?
Oh, man, that was exciting.
Fritzy, how was it for you?
It was very exciting.
Yeah? What was your favorite play?
I dozed for part of the third quarter.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
But I was okay. I was okay for the.
What woke you up?
My wife tapping me saying you're going to miss the end of the game and you're going to have to talk about it on the show tomorrow.
So your wife stayed up.
My wife was actually staying up longer than I was.
So honestly, your wife should be sitting there. Your wife should write the headlines.
She really should. But I started to doze and she gave me a little poke in the elbow, and you might want to catch the rest of this. But I did, I did catch the majority of it. But I thought we were talking about McLovin here. I don't know how I got thrown under the bus here.
Well, no, you threw yourself under the bus.
Did I throw myself
yeah,
under
you
the
did.
bus? The whole back row?
Yeah, that was
the whole back row was part of the second.
You did that on your own. McLovin, you missed a little of the game?
Okay, I'm going to admit it, but I have an excuse.
I want to hear this.
I was just very confused and tired at several things happening in the game. First of all, I never knew who had the ball in Oregon. That was exhausting. And there was a giant yellow line on one side of the field. So I'm like, is that the first down? Did anyone see this giant yellow line at the 20-yard line? It's very confusing field. Everyone was slipping around. I was like, I can't watch this anymore. And I turned it off.
Do you know what's very confusing right now? Your comments. just say, look, you know what? I fell asleep. I was tired. The baby, you had a lot of outs there, and you went with the wrong one. The Oregon offense was confusing. So that means half the nation fell asleep.
I guess so. Fritzy fell asleep. First of all, the game is halves. Even I know that. And Paulie and Fritzy are talking about the fourth and third quarter. So, come on. Who's in the wrong here?
Right now, McLovin.
Oh, actually, you know what? That's college basketball. You know what? I'm just going to turn my mic off.
What's going on?
They have quarters. They still have quarters.
Yeah. Let's move on. Let's take some calls while McLovin gathers himself. Right now, this is where you call a timeout and you go sit down at the end of the bench. You just took your headphones off. There you go.
I also misspoke in the beginning of the show. I was so exhausted. I think I actually said the game was in overtime.
Yes, you did say the game was in overtime.
And the game did not go to overtime, and you were kind enough to move on. But
I moved
think
on.
I said, hey, what a great game it was, and to have a kick in overtime to decide the national championship game when it was the final.
You can
seconds
rewind
of
on
regulation.
DirecTV. That's the thing I don't understand. You can rewind. Your DVR works, so you rewind it and watch the end before you come to work. Let's just take some calls. Oh, but first, Seton, you wanted to pitch in on the poll question.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to now, though.
I don't know. I want to hear what you got.
Well, I actually feel kind of bad about this one, and I'm kind of thinking negatively. But I couldn't help but wonder after the game if this Auburn title is going to hold up.
Ooh, sort of like the SC situation. And would, years from now, they come back and say, oh, well, we're going to have to snatch that title from you.
We got a statement a couple months ago from the BCS that if USC's appeal of their probation, of their sanctions, if they lose their appeal, then the BCS will decide whether or not to vote and either strip it or keep them as the national title holder. So it's not automatic that if they stay on probation that they'll lose their national title. The BCS has a choice.
But basically, Seton is saying here, and our poll question would be, at some point, will Auburn be in trouble with the NCAA, and would they lose their national championship?
Yeah, I mean, will Auburn's title stand? Yes or no?
Let's throw it out there. I want to throw that out there. Let's throw that out there as our poll question. Will Auburn's national championship stand, or will trouble come knocking at their door?
I don't want to get in trouble with the Auburn fans. They're pretty fired up.
Why would they be mad? Why would they be mad? A legit question.
And we've got Greg McElroy on today.
I'd love to hear what he thinks about that. Listen, school's over now, Greg. I mean, you can be honest. Let's take a couple calls real quick. Chris in Syracuse, he's been holding. Chris, what's going on?
Thanks, Kevin. McLovin. Hey, I'd like to weigh in on the poll question. And no, I don't think it was a good year for the BCS. And because we had an undefeated team in TCU that finished the year without a chance at winning the title, and you don't have that in any other sport. And I got to disagree with Thurman Thomas. I mean, we don't know how TCU would have done in the Pac-10. But just like the San Francisco Giants in baseball this year, I mean, we don't know if they would have made the playoffs if they played in the AL East in baseball, but they had a chance because of a playoff system to prove themselves, which they did. And you know, with the BCS, I don't think there's ever a good year. I think there's just different degrees of bad years. And boy, think about it. If Boise State had made that field goal, it would have been a really bad year. Instead, just a bad year.
Chris, I think it's a great point because I have huge problems with the BCS. And remember, it's just like the NFL playoffs right now. What if the Seahawks hadn't had a chance to prove themselves and they go out and they beat the defending champs? People said, oh, the Seahawks dead in the water. Thank goodness for the playoffs in the NFL. Right now, it would just be the Patriots and the Falcons playing in the national championship game or the Super Bowl if we use the BCS system.
They make these awards into something like it's always been a big deal, and it's just created. That's what the whole BCS title game felt like to me. It felt very sponsored, very slick production.
Did the commercial time mess with Oregon's ability to play fast?
Oh.
You know, because there's so many commercials and the breaks are so long that guys are rested.
Yeah.
You know, and so now you have a 5.5-hour game instead of a 3-hour game or whatever, you know, and it allows your defense to rest. Guys are the guys are out there with water bottles every so often. It's weird. Those games are awful. It's like the Super Bowl where it's like it's a different game. It's not the same kind of game.
Do you remember when Brian Kelly took over Notre Dame? He called NBC and said, "Don't have those long breaks for that very reason."
He asked if they could tweak the breaks so they could have.
Yeah, but I didn't hear Chip Kelly mention that.
You know, Auburn did the same thing yesterday. They were up at the line of scrimmage running in the
really
first quarter.
quick.
They went no huddle early.
They did it real quick, and then all of a sudden, everybody just slowed down. And I don't know whether it was, nerves or...
I always wonder what's more tiring for a 300-pound defensive lineman, to run a play or to run all the way to the sidelines in a full sprint so you could rest.
Everybody awake? Is everybody... Okay, I just want to make sure, McLovin...
I'm especially refreshed right now.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, because you slept through the national championship game. Or the fourth quarter. Tough. That's tough. Welcome back to the Dan Patrick Show. And look, what are you wearing is one of those questions you always ask on the red carpet. So now, it slides into the tees. And here, it's not a question you ask. You don't ask people when they call in, what are you wearing? Because it could go the wrong way.
So if Erin Andrews, who's done some sideline work, of course, but she's also done some entertainment work, if she asked Chip Kelly last night before the game, who are you wearing? That wouldn't go well?
Totally inappropriate. But at Dancing with the Stars, every time I interviewed Erin, it was like, tell us about your costume. What are you wearing? So it depends on where you are. And so that's another thing that, guys out there, know when is the right time to ask a woman, what are you wearing? All right, let me go back and put on my man hat, and let's talk about the national championship game. Great finish in that game as Auburn wins the national championship. And you have to say that the pivotal moment in this game was the run by Michael Dyer. 37 yards, but no one knew whether he was down or not. And after the game, in an interview, Michael said that he heard a fan yelling, keep running, keep running. Here's what he said after the game.
My knee wasn't down, but I didn't hear a whistle yet, so I was kind of looking like, what's going on. But then I heard, Darvin come on, and the team's going, let's go. And I was trying to run and get some more extra yards and keep the ball in bounds and get a first down.
Now, see, that was after he had kind of cleaned up his answer. But initially after the game, he said, I think I heard a fan yell. But it was a pivotal moment in the game, and really it changed that game because Auburn, you puts pressure on them and Cam Newton to get into field goal range to win that game. And that run kind of opened things up, and it was one of those fluke plays that changes the balance of a national championship game. Cam Newton was a little beat up after that game, and he took a beating, and people were patting him on the back, and he was injured. His back was injured, and so it's like, that's tough. You injure your back, and then people, of course, are going to pat you on the back after the national championship game. But he said, don't feel sorry for me. I just won a national championship. Here's Cam after the game.
It wouldn't have got done without these guys that's sitting on the left and right of me. I'm not up here to take up all the time. I don't want nobody to feel sorry for me because, throughout this year, didn't nobody feel sorry for Auburn. And, we got the last laugh.
What's interesting is the last laugh in maybe more ways than one. And so it's interesting that he's like, I got the last laugh. Also, Nick Fairley had an interesting conversation with LaMichael James after the game because they have become kind of friends. And so let's hear from Nick Fairley, the defensive tackle for Auburn, who had a monster game.
I just walked up to him and told him that he had a great season. Don't get his head down. This team, we played a good, like I told him, we played a good team. We was out in Orlando. We had a good talk after the award, so we became kind of, you know what I'm saying, distant friends. So out there on the field, we was talking mad junk. But that's... What kind of mad junk? No, it was just some in between two players, you know, when you're on our side of fall. But like I said, the conversation went good, you know what I'm saying. I just told him to keep his head up and that he was a great player.
How about that guy in the background who's like, what kind of mad junk? What? See, how many times do you think he uses that when he's out and about in the street?
Exactly we're not going to fall from banana in the tailpipe.
Were they talking mad junk out there to you?
What kind of mad junk? Come on, dude. Come on.
That was fantastic right now, right?
We are hoping to hear from Gene Chizik.
Any kind of guarantee?
I feel very, very strongly about Kobe, almost as strongly about Gene Chizik.
And by the way, when Gene Chizik comes on, Seton, what do we bust out for Gene Chizik?
A little Cool Mo D?
We have to play Cool Mo D for Gene Chizik, no question. How you like me now? Because, he has to feel a little bit of that this morning. Chip Kelly, meanwhile, great season for Oregon, and you don't want to take anything away from the Ducks and that offense and the season that his team had. And afterwards, he said that. He said it was a good run.
You take the ups with the downs. We had a tremendous season, went 12-0 in the regular season, and lost in the national championship game on a field goal with no time left on the clock. And there's a lot of other people would like to be in your situation, but that's what happens. That's what makes this game great. It was a heck of a football game.
And it's not over for Oregon. LaMichael James probably comes back. You heard after the game, he said, we learned a lot that we can apply to next season. Darren Thomas, the quarterback, he comes back. So, the cupboard's not bare for Oregon. They're going to be okay. And, this is just the second season of this system that he has installed. So as the players get used to, and they say from year 1 to year 2, it was a huge leap in what they learned and how they learned how to use that system. So imagine in year 2 to 3. And it has to be terrifying for the folks in the Pac-10, McLovin, huh?
Well, I was just going to ask, do you think defensive coordinators will adjust and be able to figure out that offense?
It is so confusing. It is so confusing. And I think, like Paula, you said, it was hard to watch on TV at times to follow the ball. Keeping up with the ball was tough at times.
Well, I mean, unless these other defensive coordinators have Nick Fairley and guys like that on their team, it's not just figuring it out. It's guys who overwhelm them. There's defensive linemen on Auburn who are cruising into the backfield, and that messes up whatever trick play you have.
And that was at the end of the day, size matters. I don't think you're going to see an influx of overwhelming size into the Pac-10. And, you go back and you look at the USC defense on that championship team. That was an exceptional defense. But that is not the norm in the Pac-10. Maybe what they're building down in Arizona, it'll be an overwhelming defense eventually. But right now, I don't see an overwhelming defense that will change the course of that team in the Pac-10. I think it's a great question because, once again, I want to make this point about TCU. You take a team in TCU that was the best defensive team in the country. They handled a Wisconsin team that was running up big numbers in the Big Ten at the end of the season, that was dominant in the Big Ten and beat the best the Big Ten had to offer. And TCU handled them. And as I looked at the size difference between Auburn and Oregon, I had to think back to that TCU defense and how they would have fared against those big bodies from Auburn. And since 2004, there have been 9 teams who have run the table that have not had a chance to play for the national championship game. So you want to say, the BCS system, it's great, it's working, it's perfect. Well, if it's perfect, then how does TCU not have a chance to not only play for a national championship game, but they get a smaller share of the earnings? They go into the Rose Bowl, they win the Rose Bowl, but yet they will not get as much money as Wisconsin gets because they were from a non-qualifying conference. Something's not right here.